This MCP server works in about 15 lines of Python, and that is exactly the problem. Because the moment an AI agent starts using it repeatedly, the things the tutorials skip become the things that break first. Duplicate API calls, rate limits, transient failures, bad inputs, no useful logs, and slow sequential requests. So I rebuilt the same server with 7 production patterns, and I am not just going to show you the code. By the end of it, we will call it through the actual MCP protocol and prove the cache hits, retries, validation, and parallel requests from the real server logs. And number 7 is only one line of Python, but it can cut the wait for the independent API calls almost in half. So stay tuned to the last. So very quickly, MCP, Model Context Protocol, is an open standard that lets an AI host connect to external tools and data through a common protocol. Claude can use it, Cursor can use it, VS Code can use it, and the important part for this build is that the official Python SDK is now on the MCP 2.x line. And if you use the older SDK, you probably remember fast MCP. In MCP 2.x, the high-level server class is MCP Server. So we are going to build a GitHub Analytics server with 7 tools. There will be repository overview, recent commits, contributors, open issues, commit activity, repo comparison, and rate limit status. So this is the version most of us build first, create the MCP server, decorative function as a tool, call an API, return the JSON, run the server, and it's done. And for learning MCP, that is completely fine. But a tool call is not a one-time script. An agent can call the same tool again and again during a conversation. External APIs fail. Rate limits also exist. Inputs are model generated. And once this process is running behind a host, debugging it is very different from debugging a notebook. So instead of adding a random enterprise features, I want to fix 7 concrete failure modes one at a time, which I got from my experience. So first gap will be async, HTTP, pooling, and lifecycle. So if an async tool performs blocking network input output, you lose the concurrency you built the async function for. So I am using one httpx.AsyncClient for the lifetime of the server. That gives us async input output and connection pooling. We do not create a brand new client and TCP connection for every tool call, but there is a second detail I care about here, that is lifecycle. A process level client should also be closed cleanly. MCP 2.x gives us a server lifespan, so the client is created once at startup and closed once at shutdown. And I am making the timeout policy explicit here, that 5 seconds to connect or 15 seconds to read, 5 seconds to write, 5 seconds to acquire a pulled connection, like that. And HTTPX already has a default timeout. The reason I am defining my own is not because the default is infinite. It is not. It's because the production behavior should be intentional, especially when one endpoint can legitimately take longer than another. And now the first real cost problem is repeated calls. An agent doesn't know that you faced the React 30 seconds ago unless you design for that. And it can call the same MCP tool again because it needs the result again. So before this get method touches the GitHub and it checks a TTL cache, the cache key is the endpoint plus the request parameters. If the entry exists and has not expired, we return it immediately. If it is still, then we remove it and go back to GitHub. So different data gets different freshness windows here. Repository metadata can live for 5 minutes and open issues and recent commits are getting sorted. So commit activity can be much longer for that, and I am bounding the cache instead of letting this dictionary grow forever. And this implementation is still intentionally process local, perfect for a local studio like MCP server, but If you deploy multiple replicas, move the state to Redis or another shared cache. So the nice part is that we don't need to guess whether caching worked or not. In the live demo of the server records the cache hits and outbound HTTP calls, so we can prove it there itself, which I will show you there. And now the third is rate limit awareness. So caching helps you avoid a rate limit. It does not tell you when you are approaching one, and GitHub gives that information back on the response itself. The limit, how many requests you have used, how many remain, and when the window resets. So unauthenticated REST requests get a primary limit of 60 per hour. Authenticated requests are much higher, typically 5000 per hour for a personal access token. So after every real GitHub response, I update the server's rate limit state when the remaining budget drops below like the warning threshold. The server locks it before the user discovers it the hard way. And there is another production detail here that rate limiting is not simply 403 means rate limited. GitHub can answer with 403 or 429, and 403 can also mean something else entirely. So the server looks at the rate limit headers and retry after before the deciding what happened. And if we really are rate limited, we do not hammer the endpoint again. We return a visual tool like or any useful tool error with the wait window. Now coming to the fourth gap, that is retry plus exponential backoff. Because rate limits should not be retried blindly, transient failures should. If GitHub returns say 5 anything error 5xx error, the connection drops or the request times out, then get method gives it 3 attempts. So first failure you will see wait 1 second, second failure okay wait 2 seconds, and third failure stop and return an error. The important part is not the second attempt formula, it is deciding like what is retriable. A 404 is not going to return like turn into the right repository because you waited 1 second. A malformed request is not going to fix itself also, and the rate limit gets worse if you keep retrying immediately. So network failures and 5xx errors go through backup and expected 4xx errors do not. And because every tool eventually uses this one get method helper, we get caching, rate limit tracking, retry and logging in one place itself. Now, I obviously can't ask GitHub to conveniently throw two 500s like while I'm just recording. So for this one test, I'm using fault injection. The upstream transport returns 5 not 5 not and then 2 not. And the retry logic you are watching is the real server code here. Now coming to the fifth gap, logging that does not break the MCP. So gap 5 looks boring until your MCP server stops working, like logging. There is an MCP specific trap here with standard input output transport. Standard output is the protocol channel. So the host is reading MCP messages from the standard output, and your operational logs belongs on the standard error. And Python logging already uses standard error by default, which is exactly what we want. So every outbound request records the endpoint, status code, latency, and retry attempt. And the cache hits get their own line. The rate limit warnings get their own line. I also turn my httpx on request logger down so we don't get two lines for every request. Now when something breaks, the log is not it failed. It tells me which endpoint, which response, how long it took, and whether I was already retrying or not. Now coming to the sixth gap, which is the input validation before the network. So gap 6 is that input validation. The MCP SDK can validate the types in your tool schema, but this is a string, is not the same thing as this is a valid GitHub owner or repository slug. These values become URL path segments and they are being chosen by a model. So before the cache, before the retry logic, before GitHub, I validate the owner and repo against the characters this server is willing to accept. Now what's the important part here? I'm going to call the tool through MCP with face like anything dot slash book as the owner. The tool rejects it immediately, and if you watch the server log, there is no GitHub get after that call. That is what validate before touching the network looks like in practice. And now coming to the seventh gap, that is the smallest code change in this video, that is the parallel independent input output. Suppose compare repos needs repository A and repository B. The slow version awaits A, then starts B. But those two requests do not depend on each other. So instead, I use async dot gather and launch both together. If A takes around 200 milliseconds and B takes around 200 milliseconds, the sequential version is roughly 400 milliseconds. The parallel version is closer to the slower of the two calls, roughly 200 milliseconds plus overhead. So one correction that matters here is this does not save API requests. Two GitHub requests are still two GitHub requests. Parallelism saves waiting time, not rate limit budget. And for the demo, I deliberately use the two repositories that are not already in the cache. Otherwise, you would only see one real get and the benchmark would be meaningless here. Now let's put all 7 together, and this time I want to be precise about what we are testing. This demo is not importing the Python functions and calling them directly. The client launches this server.py as an MCP standard input-output subprocess and negotiates the protocol, discovers the tools, and then calls them through MCP. So first, tool discovery, 7 tools coming from the running server. Now get repo overview for React, and the server makes the GitHub request and we get the live result there itself. So same MCP call again. So there is the cache hit. No second GitHub request for this. Next, coming to the part of repo comparison. So these are two new repository. So you can see both upstream gets actually fire, then the malformed owner and the rejected before the network, and finally rate limit status plus our local proof encounters, like how many outbound HTTP requests this server process made and how many calls the cache absorbed. Those numbers are the part I care about here mostly, not because they will be identical in your machine, they won't, but because the server can now explain what it is doing instead of making us guess everything. So if you want to run this yourself, the full repo is linked below. Create a virtual environment, install the pinned requirements, copy the example like what I have given in the environment file and run the demo. And you can use the server without a token for public repositories, but the unauthenticated rate limit is small. If you add authentication, keep the token in the environment itself and never hardcode it for sure, and it definitely never show it on camera. And if you want to inspect the server interactively, the MCP CLI gives you the development workflow as well. So the difference between the 15-line demo and this server is not more MCP, it is the boring production engineering around MCP and async input output and connection reuse, a bounded cache, rate limit awareness, retry with backoff, logs that stay off the protocol channel, and semantic input validation and parallel input output when the calls are independent. So this repo is intentionally a single process standard input output server. So I would not pretend the in-memory cache magically becomes the distributed infrastructure for sure. But the next step is exactly that. Take this local server, move it to streamable HTTP, add real authentication and observability, make it safe to run for multiple users instead of one desktop process. process. And if you want that build, subscribe here. That is the next MCP production episode, and the full code for this one is below. Thank you. Bye.